Long before Caitlyn Jenner helped catapult the word transgender into the national conversation, there was Jazz, the transgender teenager fighting for equality and understanding all of her life. And now, a new chapter. Here's ABC's Deborah Roberts.
What bathroom do you use?
I use the female restrooms because I am female.
I think it's a sick thing, basically.
This is the kind of prejudice transgender teen Jazz Jennings says she's been fighting most of her life.
It's just a bathroom, and it's not that important. We should just get over it, not create problems that don't exist, and move on.
No hate in my state. The question over which public bathrooms transgender people can use has set off a fiery debate nationwide with passage of a new law in North Carolina. But for Jazz, the 15-year-old star of the TLC reality show I Am Jazz, it's an old, familiar struggle.
Obviously, I'm a girl inside, but not fully on the outside.
10 years ago, when Jazz was in kindergarten, her school refused to let her use the girls' restroom.
One day in second grade, I decided to sneak into the girls' bathroom, and I got in trouble by the librarian, and it was super devastating because that was the first time I realized that I was being treated differently because of the fact that I was transgender.
It just matters who you are.
She later made a YouTube video plea to President Obama.
I should have the right to use that bathroom. I'm not different from anybody else, and I can lock the door and make sure they don't walk in.
Jazz won that fight. Her willingness to take on others has made her one of the most recognizable transgender teens in the country. Jazz says she felt like a girl for as long as she can remember.
When I was 4 years old, I was at a dance recital, and all of the other girls were wearing tutus, and I had to wear a pair of shorts, and I was devastated. I wanted to look like all the other girls. I stared at my mom's eyes. She knew that I was really struggling.
So that was a turning point for you and your mom.
She was able to let me express myself as a girl, which is what I wanted.
But reaching this point hasn't been easy. She shares her journey in a new memoir, Being Jazz, My Life as a Transgender Teen.
Hi. Can I come in your house?
Yes.
Jazz first stepped into the spotlight at age 6 in this revealing interview with Barbara Walters, one of the first transgender kids to step out of the shadows.
If people say to you, are you a boy or a girl? What do you say?
A girl.
When Nightline met her last year, she showed us the implant in her arm that stops her body from going through male puberty.
If I get the surgery, then, my testicles will be removed and I won't produce any more testosterone. So therefore, I won't need to get any more blockers.
Today, she's also taking the female hormone estrogen.
They help me develop as a female, get small breasts, soften up my face, hips, curves, everything like that. So, yeah. I'm pretty hooked up.
Do you ever find yourself looking at your sister thinking, boy, you're lucky, you've got all the parts, you've got it all together?
Nah, I have bigger boobs than her now.
Her openness has endeared Jazz to many. Long before Caitlyn Jenner, there was Jazz Jennings.
How different do you think the two of you are in terms of who you are and what your journeys are all about?
She grew up at a different time, at a place where sharing those feelings could get you in big trouble. It was much harder for her, I imagine. But the fact that she was still able to come out and be her true self is a brave, brave thing, and I'm happy for her.
Jazz is determined to educate about tolerance. So she held a town hall with supporters and opponents alike to discuss her children's book about transgender kids, following a controversy that made headlines when a conservative group threatened to sue an elementary school that scheduled a reading of her book. This week's season premiere shows the family confronting bias aimed squarely at them.
So basically, you're trying to brainwash some of these kids?
Why was it so important for you to confront them?
Because we have a platform where we can, I felt that it was important to do so. So let's pull back the curtain and let's see what's back there.
Doesn't that make her into a freak when you give her these hormones and then she has the other?
Does she look like a freak to you? I basically wanted to jump out of my chair and, take her on, but
I prevented her from doing that. If I looked like a male, if I didn't feel comfortable in my body, it would be harder for me to live.
I apologize if I insulted you, but I still have a big difficulty with the issue of having everything.
And that's okay, but when you call me a freak, it takes it to another level.
She handled it more mature than I did.
In addition to public battles, Jazz is now revealing a more personal, private one. In middle school, she was diagnosed with depression, something she says runs in her family. And this first year of high school has been particularly rough.
How dark did it get for you, Jazz?
I was at this place where I felt no self-worth. I didn't want to do anything. I couldn't go to school for a few weeks.
I'd look at her and I'd say, "Where's my little girl? Come back to me." It's like she was taken over by this other person.
Do you think that her journey, and her very public journey, has caused her to grow up fast?
When you're faced with discrimination, as a young kid, it takes away some of your youth.
It's definitely hard for me to talk to my friends about drama because I'm always looking at the broader picture of life. But they're talking about Jake broke up with Kelly, and that is not going to be relevant in 20 years for my life. That's like my motto. Is it going to matter in 20 years? Yes or no? Tell your son we say hi.
They both say there's less darkness and more light these days, with Jazz motivated more than ever to be a public voice for transgender youth.
Sometimes we even get messages from kids who said that they were going to commit suicide, but they decided not to because they thought about the messages that my family was sharing. It's such an incredible feeling knowing that you're able to save a life just by sharing your story. I love you.
Love you too.
For Nightline, I'm Deborah Roberts in New York.